So your offer's just been accepted to purchase a home. But what happens now? Well, in today's video, we're going to do a step-by-step process from the time your offer gets accepted until the time the keys are in your hand. I'm going to give you detailed information on how the process progresses from your initial escrow deposit to someone handing you those keys for your very first home. My name is Jeb Smith. I'm a real estate broker here in Southern California. Today's video is going to be based around the process of buying a home in California. Now, regardless of where you're located, the process is going to progress very similarly. It's going to be very similar as the process here in California. But no, some states operate a little bit differently with regards to how the deposit works, the time frames, the contingency periods within the contracts, all of that good stuff. And some states don't have escrows. California does have an escrow, so we're going to be talking about that period as well. But for now, let's take a minute and dive into this video. Now that your offer has been accepted, the very first thing you have to do as a buyer is put your earnest money, your escrow deposit into escrow. This essentially solidifies the contract and gets everything moving forward. Now understand that the escrow period starts from the time that the buyer and the seller both sign the contract. So if it takes you 2 days to get your escrow deposit into escrow, that's 2 days that you're using of your escrow period. It's not, escrow doesn't start from the time that your money goes into escrow. Just an FYI. Now, keep in mind, I'm not going to discuss earnest money deposit in this video because I've done other videos on it, but I will link to it in the description below if you want to know more about the earnest money deposit or the EMD, the escrow deposit, whatever you want to refer to it as. Now, keep in mind, this money is part of the down payment. It's part of the closing costs. So this isn't money that you have to provide in addition to. It's just taken out of those closing costs, that down payment at the end of the process. But putting that money into escrow basically confirms your side of the contract with the seller of the property and gets the escrow process moving forward. The very next step in the home buying process is going to be your due diligence period. This is the time that you're going to do your inspections on the property, you're going to review the seller disclosures, you're going to order the appraisal, essentially all of the contingencies that are involved as part of the purchase of the property. This is your time to do your legwork, if you will, to confirm that this is the property that you want to buy and that you're able to buy it. What do I mean by that? Well, this is the time that you're going to do your home inspection, you're going to have the lender order the appraisal, you're going to review the seller disclosures. If there's any HOA docs, you're going to review those. You're going to review the prelim on the property. Essentially all of the contingencies of the contract are what you're going to do or review during this time. Now, keep in mind that depending on how you wrote the contract will determine how many days you have to do these inspections and contingency removal. The way the contract is written in the state of California is that you have 17 days to do all of your inspections, your appraisal, review the disclosures, the HOA docs, all of that stuff, whereas the loan gets 21 days. So that's cumulative. So that's 17 days within that 21-day period. So you have 4 additional days to have your loan approved. Now, a lot of buyer's agents, a lot of listing agents request that buyers change those time frames and tighten them a little bit. So in some cases you might have less days to do your inspections and less days to get the loan approved, but understand that's going to be something that you negotiate as part of your original offer. But this is the time period where you do all of this stuff. You're going to determine whether or not there's repairs or something that's wrong with the property that you want to negotiate with the seller, and that's going to lead us into our next step. So now that you've done your due diligence on the property, you've had your home inspection, you've had your appraisal, you reviewed the seller disclosures, HOA docs, all of that good stuff, now's the time to determine whether or not you need to ask for any of this stuff to be fixed. You need any clarification on anything. This is going to be the time that you negotiate any repairs that might have come up or might be needed as part of that home inspection, or maybe the appraisal came in less and you need to renegotiate that appraised value or that purchase price on the property. This is going to be the time that you do that. Now, keep in mind, this is going to also happen during that initial contingency period. This isn't after. This is essentially you do your inspections and this comes up. So this becomes the second negotiation. Getting into escrow, getting your offer accepted is really negotiation 1. Negotiation 2 comes if there's anything on the property that needs to be repaired, needs to be replaced, needs to be fixed, whatever it is, this is the time that you do that. Now, this is something that you normally do in writing. You're going to put your list, you're going to review that home inspection, you're going to put your list in writing, you're going to sign it, and you're going to send it over to the seller for them to review. Now keep in mind, if you've had a termite inspection and there's termite work or any of your inspections during this time and you want something done about them, this is the time that you negotiate. It's all done in writing and it's sent to the seller, and then the seller responds in writing. Now keep in mind, this is a process that can go back and forth a couple of times. Just because you put it in writing and they decline it, say they do, doesn't mean that your deal falls out of escrow. It just means that the negotiation has essentially stalled and the ball's back in your court to either accept what they've countered or renegotiate and send it back to them. The seller in the state of California can't really back out of the escrow process until two sides can't really agree on something, and then at that point, even then, a notice to perform has to be sent out, and depending on how the contract is written, there's a certain time period that things have to be performed, at which point then the seller could back out. Now, as a buyer, if you're not able to negotiate certain things or agree on certain things as part of your negotiation, you as a buyer can back out. You don't need any reason other than the reason that you're not able to agree to certain terms, and then you can back out of the contract, and essentially your escrow deposit would be safe. So the next step in this process is going to be the contingency release period. So now that you've done your due diligence, your inspections, you've reviewed everything, you've negotiated with the seller, they've agreed to this stuff. Now, just because they've agreed to it, that essentially means that they're going to do it contractually, as long as they've signed whatever that negotiation is. Now, you don't get to wait until they complete those repairs in order to release contingencies. You're taking their word based on what was put in writing, because it's a contract, that they're going to do what they said. So now is the time to release those contingencies. We're going to assume that we're past that 21-day period and that we're using the time frames in the purchase contract. And so now would be the time to confirm that your loan's approved and that everything is moving forward as it should. And this is the time you release contingencies on the property. Now, this is the time, again, when your escrow deposit would be at risk. Anytime that you back out before contingencies are released in the state of California, essentially your escrow deposit, your earnest money deposit, is not at risk. It's still your money, at which point you do release contingencies on the property, full contingency release, not just some of the contingencies, all of them, then your deposit is at risk. So you want to confirm that this is the right property before you release those contingencies, so you don't put that money at risk and put yourself in a position where you could end up losing your good faith deposit. Now, the next step in the home buying process is going to be one of two things. Now, these can happen, one can happen first and the other one can happen right behind it, but essentially we're talking about signing your loan docs, wiring the money, and the final walkthrough. So we're just going to assume that you're signing your loan docs first. Now, this is something that happens with the lender. It doesn't really have to do with the real estate side of things, but this is a step in the process. Now, this is a step where you review the loan documents that come from the lender, the final loan documents that's going to determine your interest rate, your monthly payment, so on and so forth. And this is a time where you sign. You sit down with a notary either at the escrow office, at your house, or some third-party location, and you sign these documents. Now, once these documents are signed and your money is wired into escrow. Now, what do I mean by money wired into escrow? This is the down payment that you're doing, the closing cost, that total amount is wired into escrow minus your initial escrow deposit. Then essentially you're into the final steps of buying a home. So the loan docs have been signed, the money's been wired, you're ready to go. Now, keep in mind, just because you sign those loan docs and put that money into escrow doesn't mean the home is yours. The lender in most cases still has to review those loan docs and confirm that everything is done correctly, at which point the lender gives the okay and releases the wire to title so that title can record the lien on the property, at which point you can close on the property. Now, a moment ago I mentioned one of these steps can happen before or after the other, and that is the final walkthrough. So as a buyer, you're going to do a final walkthrough on the property, and this is where you essentially confirm that the property is in the same condition as it was when you initially put your offer in. And if there are any repairs that were negotiated as part of the contract, this is also going to be the time that you review those repairs and confirm that everything was done correctly per your agreement with the seller. Now, if something's missing or wasn't done correctly, then that's a whole different conversation that we're not going to do here, but we're going to assume everything was done correctly and that you're good to go. So once that final walkthrough is done, your money is in escrow, then you're essentially just waiting on the escrow and title company to receive that wire and get it recorded. Now here in Orange County, once that wire is received with escrow, we can record same day, which means the same day that you close, you can get your keys. In other counties like LA County, the recording happens the following day. So your loan might fund on one day and you actually record the next day. But either way, once the deal records, assuming you wrote the contract to get the keys the same day as it closes, then the property's yours. Congratulations, you're a homeowner. You can go into the property and start doing anything that you'd like. Or if you've negotiated additional time with the seller to stay in the property for a couple extra days or even rent back, then you would get the keys at the end of that period. But that's more or less how the home buying process works once your offer is accepted. I hope that was helpful. If you have additional questions about this process, do me a favor, comment below. The idea was to keep this short, so I know there's probably some steps that I skipped over that you're gonna have questions about. So do me a favor, comment below. I'm happy to go back and address those. And if you're new to me, new to my channel, it's all about real estate, helping buyers, helping sellers navigate that home buying process. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. As always, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you watching. Until next time, have a great day. See you soon.